So the next contribution before a short break is Emil Rygh, who is CEO of Sirkulær Ressurssentral. And he's going to talk about innovation and challenges on the path to a circular construction industry.
Thank you. Hello everyone. As introduced, my name is Emil Rygh. I'm the CEO of a company called Sirkulær Ressurssentral, which roughly translates into Sirkulær Ressurssentral. And we do pretty much what our name says. We are a physical reuse hub located in Oslo, but we also work with other aspects related to reuse in the construction industry. We are a non-profit company, which means we don't do this to earn money. We do it to mature the market, because right now reuse in the construction industry is quite immature and needs a lot of work to be an actual part of the business, and that is what I will talk a bit more about in my presentation. First, reuse or waste, firstly, is a significant challenge, but it's also a large and a great opportunity. Volume of construction waste in Norway in 2023 was 1.8 million tons. 24% of all greenhouse gas emission in construction projects comes from the production of new materials. And in Norway, we demolish 20,000 buildings each year. Those are huge numbers, which is a huge challenge, but also a huge possibility. And a possibility, it's a possibility because the climate environmental effect, when we take these materials and don't deliver them to waste and recycling, but use them several times before they are sent to those kind of handling, reduces the environmental impact by 90 to 95% for a product. And when it also comes to a reduction of raw material extraction and destruction of nature related to those kind of that type of activity, and when you get all of this with an immediate effect, it's really clear that reuse is part of the solution of the construction industry of tomorrow. But we have some problems. It's a growing interest in the topic. There are many people talking about reuse. Really, everyone is talking about reuse, but there are very few actors actually doing something when it comes to physical projects related to reuse. And that is a problem. And one of those problems is because what we see from reuse projects today is they are the pilot projects, the pioneers going for 80 and 100% reuse in their projects, and that is really great, but it's costly because the last 40% of reuse is the costly part, because then you have to do the difficult components. You don't take in the easier parts of reuse. So when we look at projects that has been successful in reuse, those are really expensive projects normally, and I don't think that is what we want. We want to have it economically sustainable to also do reuse, and then we need projects that take 5, 10, and 20% reuse, and those are very far in between those projects. I think that is one of the challenges that we face today, is to make this business as usual for regular construction projects, not only the pilots and the pioneers. To make this possible, we need a lot of infrastructure, both physical and digital, and that is lacking today. It's quite fragmented, the market that we're working with. The reuse hub, like we are, and I will tell you a bit more about later, are far in between, and many of them are still under development. And the actors trying to develop this are normally not companies with large financial possibilities, so it's scarce resources used to make big infrastructure. So I'll tell you a bit more about that later as well. To solve this problem, to make this possible in Oslo, we are quite complex organized in our company, and that's because the initiative taker behind this whole physical reuse hub in Norway comes from a private company, a consultant company specializes in reuse called Resirkel. They've been working with reuse for more than 10 years and had this ambition of making this large-scale reuse central. And when the governmental company Statsbygg had this large warehouse tent that they wanted to donate for a good purpose, they reached out to Statsbygg to see if they could be the receiver of this donation. But as a private company, they could not be the receiver of such a large value from a governmental company. So they reached out to Pådriv Oslo, that works with sustainable city development, and asked if they wanted to join in on the project. They are a non-profit organization, so they could be the receiver of that kind of donation. And when Pådriv saw that it was a large need for this type of infrastructure to grow the reuse market. They agreed that this is something they wanted to join in on, but decided to make a standalone company, also non-profit, called Sirkulær Ressurssentral, that they own 100%. So this is very complex. I don't think I should go into all the details about how we are organized, but it's just to see that we need new ways to solve new problems, and how we organize and how we work together, how we collaborate is a very important part of the new ways we need to work to solve circularity. We also need to bring together actors that not normally work together. So we have a lot of strategic partners and funding partners behind these projects, large company, governmental company, private companies, from the construction industry, from the finance sector, that want to contribute with money, because they also see that this is part of the solution, but they don't know where to go, and they don't want to solve it alone. It's something that we should solve together. Now a bit more about the physical hub, the thing everyone are most excited about probably, what we will do in the physical hub at Økern in Oslo. It's a 4,500 square meters resource central. I think our board director earlier said this was the largest one in Europe, and I think we are at the moment. I think there will be one in Belgium coming quite soon that will exceed our size. But at the moment, I think we are the largest hub for reused materials in Europe, and we're quite proud of that. We have been open since March 23, soon 2 years, and I've done a lot of learning during that phase. And one of the key takeaways is that we work with a very broad range of materials, because we try to push the boundaries and try to push the limits. We see that there are really, at least in the market today, there are only small fragments of the materials that are really interesting for the customers. Those are the ones contributing for large volumes of waste management fee that people want to get rid of, like stone or heavy elements. And it's the cheaper elements that you can buy and use maybe in just small scale projects as well, and office refurbishments, which we can see most of the reuse projects that has been completed today is office refurbishment projects. So we've seen that the broad range of products that we try to find a system for today is maybe not the right solution for everyone. We see that some actors now work with specializing in specific materials, and that is also part of the solution, I think. But we want to pilot the broad range, and that is why we are such a big central, and that's why we are organized as we are to test everything. The services that OMBIG provide are also something that we're testing, especially the first part here about services. First off, we thought that we can just work with intermediate storage and sales of material, and that the customers would come and you do this instead of their regular business and linear models. But we can see that when it comes to linear models, they are really market ready compared to what we do. So if you want to have some new materials for your construction site, you can just take a call or put on an online order, and it will be on the construction site the next day. That is not the same, and it's not true for reuse at the moment. So the customers needs extra services to make this to make reuse attractive and interesting for them to switch out their new materials with. So we'd have to provide some extra services related to transportation, maybe some refurbishment of the products, and we are testing out the right extra service mix to get the customer interested without putting in too much effort, because on the other hand, waste management has quite low costs in Norway. So the more hours we put into each material, the less profit we get. So we need to provide as little extra services as possible, but still enough that it's interesting for the customer. So that is what we're trying to figure out right now. The other services we provide is intermediate storage and sales, and also profit sharing model for the materials that are sold, as well as donations. And donations is the main way we get in materials today. And what the customer gets, or the material owner get in return, is documentation of how much they have delivered in. And they also get the reduction when it comes to financial costs related to waste management fees. So far, or last year, OMBIG handled reduced 2.8 million kilos of waste and put that into the resource central. Something are being stored at the moment, but also much of this are put into new building projects already. This is split between 71 different products, and the total savings related to waste management fees are 2 million. And that is with today's very low waste management fees. So I hope in the future this number, with the same numbers on the what will be the right side of the screen for you, with kilos will be the same, but the number of waste management reduction fees should be much larger because it's really cheap to get rid of stuff today, and that is also one of the big challenges. We're now back to Sirkulær Ressurssentral, not the physical research central, but also what we work in Sirkulær Ressurssentral. We are involved in several research projects, the biggest one being Sirk3, which is where tre stands for wood, which is a large-scale research project where we try to find the circular value chain for wood elements. Our main role here is to be the infrastructure, to be the warehouse where you can send in and buy used materials, and we try to deliver those to both directly out to the construction site, but also to producers that want to use secondary materials instead of first and virgin material. We work with the value system. We have started a new research project within the research project this year, where we try to find a way to find how the whole value system should be changed to be more circular, and how we should work with the different actors and connecting them together in the whole ecosystem when we work on changing key aspects of the value chain to be more circular and more fixed towards reuse instead of linear new materials. We also work a lot with test and recertification. The materials that we sell, especially if they are used for load-bearing purposes, should be certified. So together with the Treteknisk Institute, we have been working with a method for recertification of glue lamp beams. And that is now completed, and Treteknisk will do it for a more standardized process. But we have now made a method that you can use if you want to reuse glue lamp beams in your construction project, and hope to be able to provide recertified glue lamp beams this year for construction projects. Challenges. There are a lot of challenges, but the challenges are not ours alone. It's a broad ecosystem challenges, and those are the ones I want to emphasize mostly. Of course, location and infrastructure. Reuse takes up a lot of space, especially for those materials that has the largest impact. Concrete slabs, load-bearing steel elements, those are quite space-requiring elements to store. And there are no space put aside for reuse in a municipality. There are space for recycling, there are space for landfill and waste management, but there are no space for reuse, and that is a large challenge that we meet when we want to find new locations to work from. The infrastructure that we work with, compared to our competitors that works with recycling, is quite simple. We have a warehouse, unheated warehouse. We have one truck. They maybe have tens of thousands of trucks in their overall business. So it's really scarce what we work with today, and that's the financial aspect of it. Many of the actors working with reuse are pioneers, are startup businesses, and the finance is a big problem, and infrastructure is a problem. The market is not yet developed. I told that earlier as well. There are many splits in the market, especially on the digital field. Everyone wants the procurement to be as close as possible to the procurement of new materials. But right now the market has many different providers. You can search between their databases, but the truth is that not one single actor within reuse can provide what the market needs. We need to collaborate, because the real competitors to reuse is new materials. If you want to compete with new materials, we have to have a larger volume, and that volume is not delivered by one actor alone, not on the digital front and not on the physical front. So we need to be collaborating more to make a more joint market. I think that will make us more a viable solution to the new materials. Insufficient fees, I also told earlier, it's really cheap to throw away stuff, and it's really expensive to dismantle and carefully handle and put into a warehouse and store for a long period of time. So when it comes to those low fees related to throwing away stuff, it's really hard to compete. So that is also a challenge today. And the funds and subsidies that we can search on are normally really technology focused and really high innovation degree. And one visitor told us once when he visited our resource central, it's not really rocket science what you do here. And that is true, it's not rocket science. We have a warehouse where we put old materials. The rocket science or the big deal is that we're actually doing something. And that is the difference between us and many other actors, that we're doing something, trying to move the market. And I think that is also why we don't always meet up to the criteria related to research grants, is because it's not something brand new. We're actually taking old technology, something we have been doing for centuries, into new systems. And that is not innovative enough to get funds in today's system. Documentation and regulatory framework is also a big problem. It's made for linear business and will be for some of the years to come. And the changes that has been done are not being followed up by the government. There's a requirement to reuse map all buildings that are going to be demolished. There's no one checking if you actually done the mapping in today's market. Or Trondheim municipality, they do. That's the only municipality in Norway that actually checks if the reuse mapping is being completed and is of a quality that is necessary. So it's really lacking also on the follow-up on those regulations that are put into work. And we can still use in situ concrete, even though our regulation says that we should only build with dismantleable and reversible products. So it's also a lack of follow-up from the government on those kinds of stuff. So moreover to how we're trying to solve these challenges. We're not trying to solve them alone. We're trying to solve them through different networks. One of them that we have taken initiative for is Kunnskapsarenaen for ombruk I byggebransjen, which translates into National Knowledge Arena for reuse in the construction industry, where we host events to share our knowledge, but also collect knowledge from other actors to talk about reuse. We host projects that our partners want us to prioritize, that takes in large difficulties that are not ours alone, but are for many actors. Right now we're working with documentation, and we're working with a standardized method for calculating CO2 emission related to reuse, because right now there are being used so many different methods for calculation, and those are giving so many different results. So I don't know the value of the calculations at the moment, because if you want to reuse, you can use one method. If you don't want to reuse, you can use the other method and you get the result you want. That's how it is today. So we're trying to find a standardized method so everyone does it the same way, so we can compare things equally. The key behind what we do in the knowledge arena, and also the key behind what we do in Sirkulær Ressurssentral, is that we want to share everything, because we don't want to develop for ourselves. We want the market to develop. So we share everything that we produce. So everything we do, both in Sirkulær Ressurssentral, the knowledge arena, and other projects we are involved in, should be shared openly for everyone to see, both nationally and also internationally. Behind the knowledge arena, there's a large group of partners that funds this, because to being an open platform, sharing everything is not making any money. So we need partners to fund the project. And we also have specific project funding as well, that not only these actors, but also other actors provide. We are also taking the initiative to make an own network for reuse hubs in Norway. Many of you have maybe heard of us as a reuse hub. There are some municipality reuse hubs, but there are also a lot of other actors working either with operational reuse hubs or working with initiatives of reuse hubs across Norway. And we want to have this network to increase the awareness that there are actually some infrastructure being developed, and we want to increase the awareness of the difficulties that they face, and we want to meet them together with the other actors trying to provide the same service across Norway. So that is why we created this network, and it's many actors now connected to this, and we see that it's just growing, and more actors are trying to find a way, their way of producing some kind of infrastructure for reuse hubs. And it's really interesting to see what kind of broad span it is between the different actors. There are small startup businesses, there are waste management companies, there are municipalities, and there are strange actors like we are that are just many different actors working together. So it's really a very interesting mix of actors that want to be part of this, and that's and they are meeting together in this network to discuss how we should develop. So that was what I had to say about how we work. At last, I just wanted to emphasize it's the challenges and the solutions are not ours alone. We are working together with a large and a broad range of highly competent actors to solve this, and I think that is the only way we can handle circularity in the construction industry, is to do it together. Thank you.
Well, Emil, this was very, very interesting. And why haven't we thought about this earlier on? I mean, it seems so obvious to a certain extent.
I think the business of linearity is way too good. It's not easy to make money of circularity in today's market, but linear business models are really profitable today. So I think that is one of the things slowing down. But I also think it's just the speed of things, how things developed from after the World War, actually, that has been just putting us on the wrong track when it comes to consuming. And I think we have really stopped up and thought about what we're actually doing before it's gone too far and the economics are pushed towards in a linear direction. And it's really hard to change all of those business models towards circularity. It costs a lot of money, and the industry is not really ready. So they are holding a bit back, at least some of the actors.
Right. Apart from that, it was good to hear that Trondheim is still in the forefront here also. That's another good thing to note. Do you think that, given that construction materials can be reused and rechanged and being put into new buildings again, will also help us towards getting nicer architecture in our towns and cities? I mean, if you look at the city or the center of Ås, it's not all that pretty, is it? If you look at certain places in Oslo, Gallery Oslo, Oslo City, etc., might we not just demolish it, reuse the materials, and then build something which is good for our souls?
Yes, I think absolutely. Right now, the architecture is quite flat. You see the same building every city you go to, but if you work with reuse, you get more diversity, and I think the diversity is what we need, and I think reuse can be one of the tools to make architecture more diverse than it is today.
That's a very, very good bonus point. Now, we have a couple of minutes. If there is anyone here who would like to pose a question or a comment, then the time is now. Do I see any hands? No, I don't. So, final question from me then. I mean, the future seems very bright. Is Norway in the forefront here, or are we sort of lagging behind the rest of the Nordic countries in Europe?
When it comes to circularity, we're not on the forefront at all. We're quite lagging behind. Norway is the least circular Nordic country. That is something to be embarrassed about. But we are in the forefront when it comes to reuse in the construction industry. We are seeing very few initiatives on this scale, and we're seeing very few projects with the same ambitions as the most ambitious Norwegian projects when it comes to reuse. So at least in Europe, we are in the forefront, and there are many. I can see that there are so many interests from other countries that comes to visit our central in Oslo to see what we do here and what they can do in their country to get the same type of infrastructure. So there is interesting what we do here in Norway when it comes to reuse.
Jolly good. Okay, we'll take a quarter of an hour break and reconvene at 12:15.
Tack.